Hi, my name is Chalice, and here I am for the second time, but we'll call this episode 1. The previous episode was merely an introduction. Here I hope to get to a little deeper into some knowledge and information about specifically the course I'm taking and the textbook, which is what students are supposed to learn. Today's date is April 2nd, 2021. Less than 10 years to go to 2030. And so we'll see what happens there for those of us who are still around. Right. Okay. To the business at hand, I'm going to show you a portion of the electronic version of the book. And right there. And you see how I have highlighted administrative regulations are considered to be enacted law. Well, truth is, administrative regulations can only have an effect in that particular administration. There is nothing in this Constitution that says that basically that even authorizes the creation of administrations, other than what's specifically mentioned in the Constitution, and certainly nothing in the administrations can have any effect on individuals. So no administrative regulation can have any effect outside the administration itself or the organization. What are the administrative agencies? CIA, FBI, NSA, DHS, so on and so forth, that alphabet soup of all kinds of illegality. Even if those organizations were allowed to exist, there is nothing they could do that would affect anybody outside the organization. Here's another one, the IRS. Feel like anybody's watching you. The IRS was never intended to be an agency that was authorized. It only came about back in when we went to the central bank and the Federal Reserve, and they figured out that, hey, if we start stealing money from the people, we'd be flush. We'd never have any problems with funding, because paying taxes or paying the government by the people is a way to keep a check on the government. And it's one of the biggest checks on the government is paying taxes. So like you go to a store, you buy a sofa's got rips and tears in the material. Are you going to want to pay the store for that sofa? No. That's your check. You want them to either to fix it or to give you another one. And if they won't do either one, you want your money back. Well, that same principle applies to the government as well. What we pay them is a check on their activity. If they start going nuts and spending money here and there, we can say, no, we didn't authorize you to spend that money. We're not going to pay you. And that'll sure put a screeching halt to anything they want to do. And that was how the payment system was originally designed. The federal government invoices the state for its expenditures, apportioned to the number of people within those states, so that a state with 200 million with 2 million people would pay a larger portion than a state with 1 million people, for example, of the total. So you divide the total expenditures by the number of states, and then weigh it by the number of people in those states, so that over each state pays the amount based on the number of people in the state. And then the state passes that on to the citizens of the state, and they can say no. The state can say no. The state it is the state's job, as representative of the people within the state, to tell the federal government, we approve this expenditure, we do not approve this one, we do not approve this one, so you will only get paid this much because we didn't authorize the other two, or in the way it is now, the other 50,000. So that's how That's how the money system was supposed to work. It was never imagined, envisioned, or even thought of that in our constitutional republic, not a democracy, a constitutional republic, that individuals would be taxed by the federal government. That was abhorrent to these people, to the people who wrote the Constitution. Absolutely not, if it was ever brought up. They consider that to be a sign of an evil and oppressive government where the federal government taxes the people directly. That's like any kingdom would do. Any other who is that communistic things? Every other government taxes the people directly, and we broke away from those kind of governments and set up our own way back in the late 1700s. So that's a long way around saying that these administrations cannot have any effect. And how many people know about the IRS regulations that tell you to file this, do this, pay this penalty? You know, you have to if you want to make a like a payment plan to the government, it's like a couple $100 just to make the plan. That's like free money. They have no right, they have no authority, and really that is absolutely immoral for them to charge the citizens a fee to make a payment plan for taxes that these citizens should not have to pay. So that's just one example of an administration getting out of hand, and it will always get out of hand. They will always usurp any rights and privileges you give them, or you don't. They'll take it away. That's usurp. They'll take it away. Which is why administrations cannot regulate anything outside their particular organization. So there we have a little brief discourse on administrative regulation. The other thing we can talk about is right here. Judge-made law. Judges cannot make law. Only constitutions, laws enacted by legislative bodies. Those are the only things that can make law, not judges. So why then is it stated in this book? That because for generations, basically, the intent was to make people believe something that's different than what was originally made. That was originally made in the Constitution. So, judge-made law is one of those things that just cannot be. Judges do not make rulings. They do not make. They don't make rulings. They issue opinions. And what do we know about opinions? What do we tell? What is the definition of opinion? It's what's in your mind based on what you think. I have an opinion that we should have a 2-day work week and a 4-day weekend. And a 5-day weekend. Okay, that's my opinion. Let's make it law. What makes, obviously that's facetious, but truthfully, how can it not be? The judges are no different, certainly not superior to any of the rest of us. In fact, we as people, citizens, real citizens of this country, are superior to the judges. Why? Because when we elect them, they're supposed to represent us in doing their proper function. We have the power to not have them in there. And the money we work hard to earn pays for them. They work for us. So if they work for us, how can they rule over us? No, that's like saying, you have your business, you hire somebody to, as a cashier, and they come in and say, and then tell you as the owner of the business, well, I think we're going to close the next 5 days. That doesn't work like that, does it? Or they come in and say, I want to raise. I'm going to take myself, another $2 an hour. You as the owner, what are you going to say to that? Here's your pink slip. Right. So how then can we allow anyone else to do the same thing? Why is it that They sit up on their high benches, wearing their black robes and acting all majestic, like they are superior. And in fact, I can't speculate on what's in their minds, but their behavior is like they have a right to that position to rule over others. No. In fact, nobody has the right to rule over anybody else. That's the whole point of this republic, which is not a democracy, but let's don't get into that right now. As a republic, we rule over ourselves. It's self-governing. We take care of ourselves, make decisions based of what we do on our own. We gather knowledge, and we do the research, and we make the decision, and we apply that decision. Certainly, nobody in a black robe can tell us otherwise. That's just the point. And certainly nobody sitting up in Washington D.C. can tell me or you that how to behave within certain reasons. We have our own ideals, and it's not just we can just go willy nilly doing anything we want anytime we want. There are other considerations, but those are basically societal or logistical. It's like you hear a lot on Chris Ann Hall's show. Liberty is, we have the freedom plus the morality. That's what true liberty is. Yeah, you have the right to make your decisions and do your thing as long as you don't interfere with the rights of another. And this is even Benjamin Franklin said that way back. Way back. So in the early 1700s, that is, and that has to do with speech and writing. Because you can say what you want, as long as the only two bounds is that it doesn't interfere with someone else's right. Obviously some things you can say are kind of ludicrous or maybe not an appropriate thing to say, but you sure as heck you cannot arrest people because of that, and you don't want to condemn them either. And hate speech is a fallacy because it cannot exist. Speech is spoken word. Hate is an emotion. So, but that's just a whole nother thing. There is no right to not be offended. If you want to be offended, but you can't force other people not to say something because you feel offended. That's just wrong. But anyway, we're going way off track. Which is kind of what I thought would happen. I kind of figured once I got started on something, I just go all over the place. And so what? That's why I don't have a script. And that's why it's better just to talk right. But Sherlock Holmes says that. Stop it. Sherlock Holmes says, writing is important because it helps focus your thoughts and you don't ramble like I'm doing now. Which is why he was opposed to the telephone and wanted to continue with the telegraph or telegram because you had to pay per word. So if you have to pay for every word, you are definitely going to be very concise and make sure you say what you want to say in the fewest amount of words possible. That's just nature. But when you talk on the phone, I mean, you talk for an hour and say 5 useful words, which is what I'm doing now. I've talked all this time, and how many useful words have I said? Probably can. So, anyway, that was my little take on today. I did bring up the Constitution is backwards now, but Article 3 talks about the Supreme Court and how they do not make law, and there's specific only the things they can address. But if you notice something here, I know it's going to be backwards, but you see the where it says Supreme Court, you see that is not capitalized when other things are capitalized. So for us to give a court that is supreme over other courts an uppercase S is giving them a title and a status that they are not authorized to have. So their jurisdiction um, is specifically limited, and all itemized here in section 2. In section 2, that's all they can do, and it talks about treason here, which is a whole lot different than what the media complains about other people having treason and treasonous behavior. So that's a whole thing. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop it here. I hope you actually, I don't know, learned anything, or maybe pause half a second for a little bit of thought, and that's okay. And that's really all I wanted to do. If it helps anything, then fine. If it doesn't, one ear and one out, in one ear and out the other, that's just the way it goes. But if you watched, thank you for watching, and please again hit the subscribe. Um, if you like what you see, I don't want to tell you to keep it to yourself, because I need to know also that. And of course, if you have any ideas for improvement, I'll consider those later, and just leave some comments. But otherwise, this is April 2nd, 2021. Already the first quarter of this year has completed. Less than 3 quarters to go. Put on your seatbelt. It's going to be a wild ride. Have a wonderful day. And as always, stay courageous.